What does FNAF Ruin hide behind the scenes in Fazer Blast and the Mimic's domain? The FNAF Ruin DLC takes us through an abandoned and disheveled Freddy Fazbear's mega pizzaplex. But even through all this rubble, there's plenty of things the game hides out of view and out of bounds. Today we'll be showing off everything hidden within these areas, and as always, we'll be breaking stuff along the way too. Like this Shrine of Fear we can find out in the void. Or how about a Freddy vs Freddy fight? My bet's on Freddy. No party like an animatronic party. So I hope you enjoyed this final deep dive into FNAF Ruin. As always, I'm going to hit you with a quick recap per chapter before we embark on this out-of-bounds journey. That way everyone can remember the flow of events. Previously, we had just got done dealing with these minions, which eventually led to this digital wormhole that ultimately loads us into Chapter 8. After leaving the wormhole, Chapter 8 begins with us needing to take this long vent that leads into the Fazer Blast area. Once navigating through this rubble, we can make our way further into the room where we need to enter this digital doorway. It's here where we need to hurry and find the two nodes in which we need to breach. After breaching the main security node, we need to escape through another doorway that has appeared. This brings us to a lovely reunion with Glamrock Freddy, which turns terrifying very quickly as we run for our life through this maze of debris. After successfully evading him, we'll have one more encounter with him where we need to deactivate this device quickly so we can evade Freddy by entering the virtual world. This immediately follows with this horrific encounter with our Music Man and event, once again having us flee in terror. After escaping the Music Man, Chapter 8 will then conclude once we make our way through another vent and various halls as we enter into the depths below Roxy Raceway. Going back to the start of this chapter, if we go out of bounds, we'll see once we've cleared the fog that it's actually pretty dark and fairly hard to see anything, with the virtual world looking pretty cool though. However, once we've brightened up the view, we can see that our journey up ahead of us is only partially loaded in, with various objects floating about in the black void. Teleporting out here, we can bypass the loading of this area and get a closer look at the Freddy that's floating out here, along with the security node wiring down below. Out of curiosity, I tried teleporting on top of this Freddy to possibly get him to activate, like he normally does when we encounter him. Unfortunately, this resulted with a quick slip and fall to my death. Speaking of, during another slip and fall incident, I initiated the loading sequence for the rest of the Fazer Blast area, as you can see. There isn't much to this entire area when it comes to being out of bounds. Something did happen to catch my eye way on the distance though, but once reaching it, I could see it was just a slab of flooring with a wall sitting on it, just floating out here in the great beyond. Other than admiring the surroundings of this area, not much occurs outside of normal security node breaching gameplay. However, this brings us to Freddy, who I've got a bone to pick with. First off, I tried deleting him before he even had a chance of getting up for the cutscene. I thought I was in the clear at first, but then he appeared as I tried to pass, initiating the interaction we have with him normally. This was a well-played move by Freddy, so I decided to let him get me so we could take a closer look at this death animation. Everyone wins! So as he approaches, he'll leap at Cassie as he grasps the space in front of Cassie's arms. He'll then lift her high into the air like he's raising a glass for a toast, eventually bringing her down to his torso where he then ends her. This of course takes place much quicker and is slowed down for your viewing pleasure. But I digress. What a way to go, right? However, it's now time to bring in some backup. Fight fire with fire. Yes, we brought another Freddy into the mix, and once I manage to get him the space he needs to walk through here, we're gonna see what happens with this Freddy vs Freddy battle. So I climbed into this bad boy and initiated the interaction with the other Freddy. It was fun to watch it play out, and we're actually quite safe from Headless Freddy. However, now we're faced with a new issue, this Freddy that we're inside of. We're, of course, only granted a specific amount of time while in here. This didn't stop me from messing with the other Freddy for a few moments, but it did ultimately force me to rush through this area so I didn't get devoured by my Freddy suit. Once we reach this drop though, we are safe. Freddy won't drop down after us and will just linger. Deleting him as the chase begins proves to be the best option though, which allows us to casually walk through this terrifying gauntlet and truly appreciate its horrific beauty. We can find that a lot of bots were sacrificed in the making of this course. After escaping though, we're only granted a brief moment to relax as we end up getting cut off by Freddy, as he's now in front of us. We can see how he just simply loads in behind this wall prior to blasting through it for the scene. We can traditionally escape him here, but I delete him. See ya. I would have loved to see a more exciting interaction between these Freddys, but they're never meant to meet anyways. Moving on, we can see the remainder of this chapter has loaded in. We now have this interaction with this terrifying Music Man that ambushes us as we begin to use the vent. We can see he's not lingering above and simply loads in while this all takes place. He wants blood though, and if we're not, fast enough, he will feed. The thing is though, you can actually do this chase backwards. If you know the path, you can do this entire chase while looking at this creepy little fella, which was pretty funny to discover. However, when this guy does get a hold of us, we can see that our arms will immediately vanish. He'll then begin to raise 2 of his 6 legs up like so, while clapping away with his sharp, rusty cymbals. The jump scare then ends in static once it's nearly face to face with Cassie. Instead of dying though, I pulled a fast one on this little guy as I got behind him with teleportation while he was chasing me. If we follow him, we can see he graciously, but horrifically, treks through this vent. We're behind him though, so once approaching the end, he'll simply turn around and shortly after disappear. Which is what I assume he does if we evade him normally as well. The couple remaining vents and halls of this chapter don't consist of much, but there's a loading area here that will freeze our position as it loads. Watching from a different perspective, we can see it's loading the depths of Roxy Raceway, leading us into the final chapter. Chapter 9 begins with Cassie conversing with deepfake Gregory about shutting down all these security nodes. Gregory informs her of one more remaining node though, the last remaining node being Roxy. And we can clearly feel Cassie's confliction with being given the task of deactivating her. We'll go through a few various rooms, eventually making our way into this more open area, where we'll find Roxy stuck underneath a forklift. An emotional scene will play out once you approach her and put on the mask. We then do the sad, but necessary step to progress from here, as we deactivate Roxy. Bon voyage once again, Miss Roxy. From here we'll make our way down some scaffolding and enter into this underground sub-level of the raceway, where we'll find an elevator. This takes us further down into the ruin, and while progressing, we'll see wreckage all about, as we enter this narrow hole that goes even further down. This hole leads to this big and pretty cool looking cave, which is where our flashlight decides to clock out of the adventure. After admiring the view though, and collecting a few of these Faz tokens, we'll make our way through this rundown hall, which leads to this interaction with Candy Cadet. This follows with some stairs, and various rooms with burners in the floors. Smells like a burn trap to me. Eventually, after some more venturing further down, we'll find ourselves inching very close to the end of this entire DLC. Putting the mask on and using this machine will initiate this interaction with the entity, as it digitizes out of the machine, being its last final effort with trying to stop us. After all this unfolds, the door behind us will open, and we need to start up this forklift to break out our dear friend Gregory. Of course, most of you will know that as this cutscene takes place, it becomes evident that we've been bamboozled, as these red eyes peer at us from the dark corner. This creepy figure, known as the Mimic, continues to try to claim as Gregory, as it aggressively approaches us. Roxy comes out of nowhere to save the day though, as she gives us a chance to escape. We'll hear the two of them fighting as the possible real Gregory gets a hold of us over the radio. He'll tell us the obvious about it being a trap, also informing us his friend has access to building maps, so he'll give us instructions to follow. That's when the metal Rizzler will appear as it yeets the forklift, which then kicks off the final chase in the game. Gregory will then give us directions, helping us navigate through this area. The panic-inducing chase eventually leads to this door that we must quickly but patiently open. Once getting this door open, it will follow with the Mimic nearly getting us as we make our escape. Gregory will then come on over the speaker, explaining how Cassie was never supposed to go down there, but it's not her fault. He then adjusts his anime glasses and says they can't risk being followed, as the scene implies that he cut the elevator loose. Regardless, it comes tumbling down as Cassie screams, with the game abruptly coming to an end during the standard ending. With that said, let's go back to the beginning of this chapter when we were loading into the Roxy Raceway area. Going in for a closer look, we can see these giant marionette-looking dudes floating in the air inside these go-karts, which are in the virtual world. I found these guys to be very creepy, but also spectacular to look at once turning off the fog. Before addressing Roxy under the forklift though, I, of course, had to try and get out of bounds. Ultimately, this led to the usual clipping through the ground and getting stuck scenarios. I was hesitant walking out here because I didn't want to clip through and die. I eventually did find myself just taking a detour to get to Roxy, as I broke through the wall behind her. This emotional interaction with Roxy in the virtual world is rough, but if we go take a look at her in the real world while this plays out, we can find her still struggling to remove the forklift. When we go to put the Faz wrench into her eye socket, we can see our flashlight to our side as we do this. In the midst of checking this out though, I was able to see this screen in this peculiar view. The one we normally use to connect the dots essentially. It was black instead of blue, and when I went back to my normal view, its size remained small. So I can only assume my messing around contributed to this. Once completing her deactivation though, we can go back up top and see that the real world Roxy is now in sync with the virtual one, as they both deactivate in sequence. I did try to save Roxy by deleting the forklift that's on her, but as you can see it doesn't exactly work, and I'm just able to walk through it now. Going out of bounds here, I noticed a couple of objects way out in the distance, so I decided to investigate. Getting closer, we'll see some flooring of some sort here, along with, yes, an elevator. This actually happens to be the elevator we end up taking shortly after deactivating Roxy. Looking at the elevator we normally enter, and going out of bounds shows that they're very far away from one another. So what's happening here is that the player will enter this elevator, and once they hit the button, if we zoom out, we can see that the area we're currently in unloads as we're teleported instantly to the other elevator. As the entirety of this final area loads in around the elevator we're teleported into. Because of the way the game was broken though, with the camera being dislodged, while discovering all this, I went to take back control of Cassie and found myself stuck in the original elevator we were in. Once I deleted the elevator doors, you can see the area we were supposed to load into, and there's something out in the distance over by it. So, of course, going in for a closer look reveals, well, a T-posing entity, an endoskeleton, and Cassie's arms, which is hard to see as they're all clipping through one another. There's also this beat-up costume that's here, along with a metal-like claw machine, the lost cousin of the Scooper. This all floats out of here throughout the rest of the game, and they'll be called upon if we initiate them as we make our way to the game's ending. I did end up trying to teleport myself out onto these guys, and failed miserably, as none of them had collision. But we'll get back to this Scooper and costume later to discuss where they come in, as we progress further. Continuing on normally is where we'll find ourselves reaching this cave. We can see when the flashlight dies, Cassie will struggle to get it working again, as her arms freeze in position and the flashlight briefly duplicates itself, right before disappearing altogether. It might be fair to say the arms probably swap with the ones out here in the void. However, I had this weird glitch end up occurring when I was trying to collect one of the Faz tokens, and it simply wouldn't pick up. Take a listen. Terrifying. So I can't emphasize enough on how cool this cave looks overall. Between the lighting and waterfalls, I was simply just waiting for a great fairy to appear from Zelda and take Cassie away from this FNAF nightmare. After leaving this cave area is where we'll have this interaction with this robot known as Candy Cadet. It'll spout off, "I am the Candy Cadet, come here. I have candy all day, every day. Candy, candy, candy." However, Candy Cadet has more to say, which is based on how many Faz tokens we've collected throughout the game. We can find these tokens in the following locations. One can be found at the beginning of Chapter 7, another in this locker room area, which is right after the chase sequence we have with the Music Man event. Then there are two more, which can be found in this big cave we were just in, and right after leaving the cave, we'll find another in the back right corner of this hall. Another one is in the very next room, right before Candy Cadet, but the remaining token is in one of the burner rooms, which requires us to progress beyond Candy Cadet. Having all the tokens that we just talked about though, will result with Candy Cadet telling the following story.
Now I will tell you a story about a mother and her little boy who lived alone in a cabin in the dark woods. There was a monster in the woods, but the mother caught it and kept it locked in the basement. The monster always made scary noises at night, but the mother would tell the boy not to worry because it could never get out. Then she would sing the boy a lullaby to sleep. One day, the monster stopped growling and instead listened and learned the lullaby. The next day, mother went up to find food. The monster sang the lullaby from the basement. The little boy heard the lullaby and opened the door.
Basically, this foreshadows the events that are taking place in the game. The monster singing the lullaby from the basement may be the mimic pretending to be Gregory, hence luring us down here to free it. Let's move on though. From here, we'll make our way into this room where we can find what I believe is Gregory's backpack. However, we need to go over to this computer and proceed with shutting it down. This is where the entity shows up for his final appearance. Safe to say, this is the T-posing entity from the void. Watching from this perspective though, we can watch how it'll just spawn in behind the machine. Its right arm appears to be in a fairly uncomfortable looking position, as you can see. Deleting the machine the entity normally comes out of and watching this play out in slow motion is great. This rabbit is truly a digital nightmare, with the slow motion letting us take in every terrifying moment. Eventually it will get sucked back into this machine, but because it's deleted, we can see their model goes into this contorted position after being pulled back, where the entity eventually despawns. Poor Cassie. She just can't see that it's trying to help. Anyways, now we need to break this concrete wall down by starting up this forklift. Going into the room prior to breaking in, we can see that the Mimic isn't in here yet. As the forklift breaks through the concrete though, we can actually see that the concrete wall slides down to the ground, as it's not actually breaking. This, of course, isn't noticeable when normally viewing it, as the scene plays out quickly with the debris playing tricks on our eyes, making it appear as if we actually broke the wall. Before doing this though, I wanted to see if anything would happen if we got into the room without breaking the concrete. The answer is, well, we can get in here, and just as I suspected, going near the way we'd normally come in will initiate the cutscene we get with the Mimic. Entering this room normally this time though, we'll see the walkie-talkie spawns in before the Mimic itself. When the Mimic does spawn in, we can see the walkie-talkie is in its stomach basically. This makes sense though, given it's normally a very dark scene, and we wouldn't see any of that. However, it is funny to watch as it shoots out the walkie towards us from its back. While this is occurring, we can see that Roxy is loaded in behind us, waiting for her cue to jump into the scene. When Roxy initiates, she uses instant transmission to make this save, which is interesting to watch play out. The two of them will freeze, as normally we're watching this from Cassie's point of view as she runs. We can clearly see here though that Roxy isn't winning this fight. I mean, we can assume this is the outcome, but you can see how the Mimic has got a good hold of her head, and it actually looks like it's ripping her head off. Jeez. Bon voyage again, Roxy. She just keeps coming back. The Mimic and Roxy both vanish while we're talking to the supposed real Gregory. Once we're done talking to him, the Mimic will appear again along with the forklift, because I deleted it in this particular instance. But now we have a chase on our hands. Or do we? Yeah, I deleted the Mimic. Now we can have a nice relaxing stroll through this would-be death race. I will say though, not much is revealed, even with the luxury of not being chased. However, if we take a left at the end of these caves instead of a right, we'll find this Freddy cutout that will allow us to put the mask on. This will put us into the end sequence, which is one of 3 endings that are possible. Gregory will transmit over the radio, saying he's okay and that he found a safe spot to hide, as Cassie can be heard panicking. The screen will fade to black as the credits roll. We can find this ending just out of bounds of the level though, allowing us to take a longer peek at it. We can see Vanessa, Gregory, and Helpy are just chilling on this hillside as they enjoy some ice cream in the sun. You can see how the entirety of the scenery has multiple layers throughout it as well. It's kinda sad when it comes to this end though, as I'm not entirely sure how to take it. Did she die? Is she safe? Was it glorious? Definitely food for thought. In another instance, when I was attempting the common ending, which we went over in the recap, I noticed once I was trying to open the elevator, the Mimic was acting funny. It was lingering in the back of this hall as the music got more intense, when suddenly he zipped up to Cassie and immediately destroyed her. It definitely made me jump. While we're here, let's take a look at the death animation with the Mimic, as it's definitely neat to see from this perspective. If I'm gonna be honest here, I don't believe the Mimic ever lays a metal finger on her body throughout this entire sequence. That is fortunate for Cassie, I suppose. However, you can see the Mimic's feet are clipping through the ground as it eventually swats Cassie, ultimately putting us into the static death screen. Now for the last ending we haven't gone over, the player must go to specific camera stations throughout the game that have secret cameras we can discover by zooming out on their minimap, as you can see here. The first camera station with this is in Chapter 1. It'll have Monty run by fairly quickly when you first open it. The next one is located in Chapter 3. It'll be the security camera station that's near this chair that is also a node. We'll then find the next one in Chapter 5. After breaching this node, we'll be tasked with going to this security camera station, which is where we'll find the secret camera. The final hidden camera is in Chapter 7 though. In Bonnie Bowl, we don't want to go to this station, but rather the one that is located near the bowling alleys. As you open these secret cameras, you'll see that there are doors that are opening during all of this. We're basically opening up the path we need to take at the end. However, this also causes our interaction with the Mimic to be slightly different, as you'll see. The Mimic will now be wearing this costume made up of, well, multiple costumes it appears. One thing I did not mention before is that this room we encounter the Mimic in currently has 2 mascot costumes hidden within the darkness, an elephant and a bird. We can see these 2 costumes just sitting in the dark, with a third lion costume being found only in the game files. In this ending, the Mimic quickly takes parts of all these costumes and hides within them. Everything plays out the same as the usual chase, except this time we're diverted to this path of open doors, which leads us to a room where we can seek safety. Hitting the button inside the room will initiate the cutscene where the Mimic slaps against the glass as the metal scooper arm saves the day, as it grabs the Mimic and pulls it into the smoke. We'll hear some mechanical noises, and eventually the smoke will clear, revealing the Mimic motionless on the ground. The screen will then fade to black as the credits begin to roll. The first thing I noticed here was that the mimic will straight up disappear if you're a good distance away while entering this final room. However, if it's on your tail, it'll stand idle once you're locked in the room. So with that, I decided to delete the door to see what exactly would happen. To my surprise, it just turned around and began to leave, eventually unloading from the game. I for sure thought it was just gonna come into the room and devour me, but I guess not. On a separate note, I noticed the original end path is now blocked off by debris. So I decided to delete this obstruction for science because I wanted to see if it will confuse the mimic as we take this path once again. Turns out it does not confuse this Gregory imposter one bit though. It'll follow us right in as the hallway sequence begins while attempting to open the elevator door. Joke's on the mimic though, because I learned some new dance moves and electric slide right by this demonic robot. The mimic just continued towards the elevator, stopped, thought about its life choices, and then proceeded to re-engage with me. And with what I thought would be an instant death situation is now this unlikely chase I'm giving the mimic, as we're now about to do the scooper ending instead. Before taking a closer look at the scooper ending though, I went back and tried to get into the elevator without actually opening it. I figured it'd be safe and all, but turns out it's quite a temporary situation, as the mimic teleported into the elevator and jump scared me. Let's take a look at what's going on behind the smoke screen in this final scooper ending though. Once we hit this button, you can see it'll rush the window real fast. After slowing it down, we can see how there's a wall of smoke between us to create the illusion that the room is full of smoke. Looking closely at the mimic, we can see his face is in the mask, which is worth remembering as we watch this scene. The scooper pulls our terrifying friend back from the window, where it eventually despawns, which is something we normally cannot see. Then the mimic will reappear on the ground, motionless as the smoke eventually clears. What I found pretty neat is that if we take a closer look, we can see that it's just the costume on the ground here. The mimic is not in the costume, which means it was properly scooped and pulled out. A neat detail that is normally harder to see. Going back out of bounds though, we can see that the costume and scooper are no longer here unsurprisingly, as they've been called to our location for this cutscene. I gotta say though, with the game coming to an end, I'm still pretty upset that Roxy got the short end of the stick when it comes to this entire DLC. So, I decided to throw her a going away party. As you can see, Vanny, Freddy, and a ton of the Mimic's cousins have accepted the invitation. They're all stomping away in a giant mosh pit, while Roxy is still getting crushed. Vanny is just kind of skipping in place and getting shoved around, which is a bit funny. While I was trying to get these guys in here, you'll see that it was quite the struggle, with them glitching out of bounds from where we were. Beyond the level's walls, the Mimics just continuously rain down from nowhere as they keep trying to spawn in, and it's a spectacular view. I wonder if this is what John Connor's nightmares look like. With that though, this concludes our Out of Bounds journey through the entirety of the FNAF Ruin DLC. I hope you all enjoyed this alternative look at this DLC, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers!